Hello, and welcome to this hard Sudoku puzzle by the New York Times. Today is October 4th, 2022, and I'm quite pleased to introduce you to this puzzle. It has some very satisfying and interesting logic, and for an intermediate solver, I think there is a lot to be learned from this solve. So without further ado, let's get started. We can put a 1 in one of these cells here because of the 1 here and the 1 over here. We know that a 1 will have to go either here or here. But since we have a 1 here too, and this 1 points to these 3 cells, we need a 1 in one of these 2 cells. That's pretty clear. So a 1 here and a ghost 1 here, and this 1 puts a 1 in this cell. And another observation, we have a 2-8 here and we have a 2-8 here, and that gives us a 2-8 for these 2 cells. And since we now know that these 2 cells have to be a 2 and an 8, and we have a 9 pointing to these 3 cells and a 9 down here, we now know that a 9 for row 3 will have to go exactly here. The remaining 3 digits for row 3 are 3, 5, and a 6. There's a 3 and a 5 already in this column, so the 6 will have to go here. And this is now a 5 because of the 3 down here, right? So the 5 goes here and the 3 here. Given a 2 and an 8 up here, we still need to place then a 4, 5, and a 6 in these 3 cells, and therefore a 1, 3, and a 7 in these 3 cells. But before we get to analyze that, we can put a 4 in this cell because of these 2 4s. And that in turn gives us a 4 for this cell now because of the 4 down here. And here's, I think, quite a common pattern with these puzzles. There's a 2 and a 9 here, so clearly a 2 and a 9 can't go in this cell. There's a 2 and a 9 here, so a 2 and a 9 can't go here either. So now we know that this cell and this cell, that's going to be a 2-9 pair, leaving a 4-7 for this cell and for this cell. So we've got a 4-7 pair and we've got a 2-9 pair. And we can place an 8 now in this cell down here, and here is why. This 8 can see these 3 cells, and this 8 can see these 3 cells, and that leaves only these 2 cells for an 8 in row number 8. And since therefore an 8 cannot go here or here, and the 8 here and the 8 here prevent an 8 from going here and here, we can place the 8 in this cell, like so. And of course, one of these cells now will have to be an 8. And we can place a 1 in this cell because the 1 up here points to this cell, so we know that a 1 for row 9 will have to go in one of these 3 cells, and it cannot go in this cell or in this cell because of these 2 1s. So the 1 will go here. And the last 3 cells will have to be a 2, 7, and a 9. The 7, of course, will have to go either here or here because of this 7 up here. Here's a little bit of a quite nice logic. Let's have a look again at column 2, shall we? We need to find a 3, 5, 6, 7, and an 8 to complete this column. 3, 5, 6, 7, and an 8. We have a 3, 5, and an 8 here in this box. So in theory, this cell should be a 6 or a 7. But we can rule out the 7, can't we? Because of the 7 here. we know that a 7 will have to go here or here, and therefore it cannot go here, leaving this cell to be a 6. A little while ago, we established that this cell has to be a 2 or a 9, and this cell has to be a 2 or a 9. Let's repeat that logic. There's a 2 and a 9 in this cell, so this has got to be a 4 or a 7, because we need a 2, 4, 7, and a 9 to complete column 1, right? So 2 and a 9 here prevents a 2 and a 9 from going here, and a 2 and a 9 here prevents a 2 and a 9 to go here. So this has got to be a 2 or a 9, and this has got to be a 2 or a 9. So far, so good. But that means that this cell cannot be a 7. And this cell cannot be a 7 because we need a 7 for the bottom row. And this cell here, again, cannot be a 7 because of the 7 here. So this now has got to be a 7, and this is a 2, 9, this is a 2, 9, and this is a 2, 9. And we almost have the same constellation in the 9th column. This cell cannot be a 2 or a 9 because of the 2 and a 9 here. And this cell cannot be a 2 or a 9 because of the 2 or a 9 here. So we know that a 9 will have to go in one of these 3 cells. We can't be sure yet about the 2 because the 2 could, in theory, go here as well. What we can do, however, is place a 7 and an 8 in the grid now. You can pause the video if you would like and see if you can spot it. It's not quite obvious, but if you've been following along, I think I've left a few hints along the way. Anyway, here goes. The 7 here puts a 7 in this cell or in this cell. And that means that the only place in the grid and in this column 4 for a 7 is here. And now an 8 needs to go in this cell because there's no other place for it. The last remaining digit here is a 9 now. Remember when we said that this cell has to be a 4 or a 7 and this cell has to be a 4 or a 7? We now know that since we found the 7 for this cell cannot be a 7 anymore, and therefore it must be a 4, and this cell up here must be a 7. And that gives us a 4 for this cell down here because of this 4 and this 4. They can see these 4 cells, and this 4 can see these 2 cells. So the 4 goes here, and that 4 and that 4 gives us a 4 for row 2 goes here, and for row 1, because of the 4 here, and the 4 over here, this is now a 4. Leaving a 3 and a 5 pair for the 2 remaining empty cells in block 1. I can't place them yet, but I don't think it'll take a long time from here. Actually, I can place them because the 5 needs to go here, and you know why. Because as we recall from the outset, this is a 2-8 pair, and there's already a 5 in this block here, so the 5 will have to go here. These 2 now have to be a 3 and a 6 in some order, and that leaves a 6 for one of these 2 cells, and there's a 6 down here that points us to the cell right here for the 6. And of course the 3 goes here. And of course this cell now has got to be a 5 because of the 5 here and the 5 here. And this is now a 1 and a 7. We need a 3, 7, and an 8 for these 3 empty cells. There's a 7 here and a 7 here, so this is a 7. And there's an 8 here and an 8 here. That gives us an 8, and the remaining cell here has got to be a 3, like so. A little more obscure is remote 5 and a 6 pair. This cell here can only be a 5 or a 6. And this cell cannot be a 5 or a 6. This cell cannot be a 5 or a 6 because of the 5 and a 6 here. So this is a 5 or a 6, and this is a 5 or a 6, leaving a 1 and a 3 for these two cells. However, this 3 here and this 3 here puts a 3 in this cell or in this cell. Therefore, we know that a 3 will have to go in one of these two cells, meaning that it can't go here. Ergo, this has got to be the 1 and this has got to be the 3. And this is still a 5, 6, and this is still a 5, 6. Now we have the 1 here and the 1 here and 1 up here. So this digit plays itself. The last digit here is a 7. And I think we are making progress now. We need a 1, 2, and an 8 to complete column 7. There's a 1 here and there's a 1 here, and that puts a 1 in this cell. And of course, a 1 in this cell because of the 1 over here to the left. And our old friends 2 and 8 up here now can be resolved because of the 8 here. This has got to be a 2, and therefore this an 8, and this is a 2 now. The 2 here and the 2 here gives us a 2 for this row. And as we recall, this cell was a 5 or a 6. We now know that it has to be a 6 because of the 6 up here. And the 2 6s here gives us a 6 for column 3, goes here. And the last digit here is a 9. And the last digit for row 5 is a 5. Now these are 2, 9, and a 2, 9, a 2, 9, a 2, 9, and a 2 or a 9, leaving these here 2 here to be a 7 and an 8. This one, of course, cannot be an 8 because of the 8 over here. So the 7 goes here and the 8 goes here. These 3 now are 3, 5, and a 9. We know that these 2 had to be a 2 or a 9, right? So we're given the 2 up here. We know now that this is a 9 and this is a 2. This is a 9, this is a 2, and a 9 here. Now the 3 and the 5 have to go here. There's a 3 already in this row, so that's easy enough. The 2 here and the 2 here gives us a 2 for the row, and the last digit is a 7. It must go here. The 5 here puts a 5 in this cell, and therefore the 3 must go here, and another 3 up here. The last digit here is a 6, and therefore a 6 goes here as well, and this now has got to be a 9. I hope that you enjoyed this puzzle. It had some quite nice logic, I think. It wasn't overly difficult, but if you're a beginner or even intermediate solver and you enjoy solving puzzles without using pencil marks, then this is a very good example. Thank you for watching. See you again here back soon. Bye for now.